Excited to talk to you today.
Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, I've been waiting a long time to get to the good stuff. I only see glimpses of you at school and out here, and so it's nice to finally really have a chance to talk.
It is.
Okay, so you are a writer and have been a writer for a long time, and you work with a lot of writers for your podcast. I believe that writers are special. They have something really special about them. Anyway, please tell me, how do you work?
I don't feel like it's brave or anything like that, because for me, the writing is how I process what I feel. I get sometimes just sitting down and it just starts flowing from my fingers. And sometimes I even need the writing to organize what I'm feeling. Like I'm all over, I'm snapping at the kids, or I'm like having one of those days, and I think, you know what, if I could just sit down and write, I will figure it out. And I do. And I don't know how that works. I don't know how it comes out in that way. It's nothing I've tried to do. I can try to write better, or in a more literary way, or in a be more descriptive, or be a better writer. But the part of it coming from my brain onto the page, I don't know. It's just my whole life. It's easier for me to write than to talk.
Yes, I feel that way
As
too.
evidenced perhaps by this talk.
Oh, so. Yeah, I feel that way too, actually. How long have you been writing?
I've been writing forever, since I could write. So when I was 9 years old, I was writing short stories in school, and my grandfather had a miniature book publishing business, these tiny little books, and he collected miniature books. So he published 2 of my stories in my own little book when I was 9. And I could hand out copies to people. I had, 20 copies. It was the coolest thing ever. So I've just been doing it forever, since I could write. And my first published piece in a magazine, I was 16 years old, but I wrote it when I was 14. And it was about how I was feeling at that time. My parents were getting divorced, and dealing with my body, and gaining and losing weight, and all the same stuff that is going on now, basically. But I wrote that piece out of frustration one day when I was having a bad day, and my mother found it, and we sent it to 17 magazine. And I was like, okay, I guess we could try. And they ran the story, and I got so much amazing feedback from it that it made, and I was already at a fiction writing workshop for the summer when it came out. So it's not like that is what pushed me one way or another, but I did get to see the power of connecting with people in that way, people I didn't know, and that's been really amazing.
Mm-hmm. Your parents, it sounds like, they saw you were talented and passionate about something, and kind of helped move that along. And did you feel that you were allowed to kind of be yourself with them? Were they trying to make you be a lawyer, or make you be a doctor, or, you know what I mean, where sometimes generational things can pass down from, what your father's doing or what your mom did?
No. It was very clear that I was not going to be able to do anything my father did. No, I'm not a finance person. I'm fine. I'm good at math. It's fine. But I'm not that was not going to be what I did. No, they wanted me to be whatever I wanted to be, but to always try my hardest at it, whatever it was. So not to do it no half-ass trying.
Yeah.
If you're going to do it well. Put your whole heart in it. And as long as you try your hardest, then that's all that matters.
Yeah, so that's where the work ethic has really come in, because you're quite the entrepreneur. You've started a lot of businesses, and I feel like the new podcast. So tell me kind of the steps you've taken in terms of, since you've graduated college, the businesses you've been involved with, and the projects you've been doing.
I've always been really attracted to startups. After college, I worked first for this tiny brand development firm, and because I was really interested in understanding consumer behavior and what made people attached to brands. Originally, I wanted to be a psychologist, but I didn't want to commit myself to one place for 5 years in my 20s, so I put that on hold. Honestly, that was why. So, but then I joined this company called Ideal Lab, which was an internet incubator, and tons of new businesses were just rolling through. They started City Search and all these Pay My Bills, and I'm blanking, of course, on all the companies. Cars Direct, and it was a really exciting place to be at that time when the whole industry was changing. And I got to see what it was like, because I was the marketing resource for all the different companies. So each company that came, I would help them get started and help them negotiate group deals for advertising. And I just caught the bug there. I just loved it, loved seeing what was possible. The branding at the beginning, I've always been really interested in. So I started then, and then my path kind of veered. I moved back to New York. I was in LA for a while. I did more traditional consumer products marketing for Unilever, helping launch the Vera Wang fragrance. And then I actually had this idea that I wanted to start this service to help busy professionals like deal with, this is so stupid, I like never talk about this, like to have a service where people would like wait for the cable guy and help organize, because all my friends at that time were busy and didn't have time to do that. And I was like, oh, I'll start a thing. So I mentioned it, I think I mentioned it to my dad, and he's like, you're not starting any business unless you go to business school. So go to business school, and then you'll have all the information that you need to get it started. So then I went to business school. My life kind of changed then. I lost my friend Stacy on 9/11, who was my college roommate, and it just changed my life in such a way because I realized if I believe she died at her desk, because that's what the timeline would suggest. So I decided, like, if I was going to die at my desk, at my job, I had to bring my whole self to what I was doing. So that summer I had an internship at an ad agency marketing Pepperidge Farm cookies, which was fun. I mean, I love that stuff. I love cookies, and I love food, and I love marketing. And it was sort of a dream job in some respects, but I was like, I can't. This is not it. This is not enough for me. So after business school, in a non-traditional path, I decided to take some time off and write, which I always wanted to do. At business school, I met people who were really passionate about marketing, the way I've always been passionate about writing. But it's hard when you're 25 to say, I'm going to be a writer. I mean, I also feel you don't even have, now that I'm in my 40s, like, this is the time to write. I feel like this and later. Most of the people I interview, 30s, 40s, I feel like there's some life experience you need to really inform the writing. But anyway, I did that. I started freelancing. I worked on another book that I wrote, and I got involved once I had kids. I'm kind of jumping around, but I had kids and started working with friends from business school on a startup called Gaggle of Chicks, which was a daily deal site for moms, like Groupon. And that was super fun. I wrote a blog for them and helped negotiate deals and got in touch with all the partners that my kids classes and stuff. So that was really fun. And then life kept moving, and I was always writing. But then I helped my second husband, Kyle, my current husband. I saw him one day at the computer, and I was like, oh, what are you doing? And he's like, well, I'm helping my sisters launch a Kickstarter campaign. And I was like, for what? And they're like, well, they want to start this bakery. They're really good at making crumb cakes, and they're thinking about making it a business. And I was like, hold on. Stop the Kickstarter. Let me at it. So we came up with a new name, a slogan, I got them a new logo. I did like all the branding. I was so into it, and then helped them get into a bunch of different stores. I mean, they did it because they're amazing, and Kyle's mom and sister and grandma are just relentlessly hard workers, and it was all them, but just from what I could do up here, because they're based in Charleston, South Carolina. So that was really fun for me, and like getting them into the New York Times and in the farm stand here around the corner, and that was really exciting.
The cake also speaks for itself.
The cake does. It did. It was the easiest sell. I'm like, try this. Yes, that was all it took. So that was great, having an easy product to market. And then it was just taking too much time, and there wasn't. I couldn't like bring it to the next level, and Kyle's mom was ready to be the CEO of her own thing, so I put that aside and decided to work on this book I really wanted to write. And then, if this is too long, please. And then I started doing a lot of essays. I started writing a lot of parenting essays, and what I was saying at the beginning about connecting with people, I had a bad day again. Maybe I should just have more bad days. This is like, I have to mind this for all it's worth. But I was frustrated with so many forms. It was September. It was like back to school, form after form, like bring in toilet paper rolls for this class, bring in this, bring in that, come for 20 minutes here, sign up. I was like going out of my mind. And I didn't have any time to even hang out with the kids and I have 4 kids. So it's like every kid has after school activities and schools, and they're all in different schools. And it was just like, I wanted to like blow my brain dead. I couldn't keep it all straight. So I just like vented about it basically, and I put it up on HuffPost, and within a week I had like 65,000 people read it or something crazy, and I was like, oh, other people feel this way too. So that just encouraged me to keep doing more parenting writing. After a while, Kyle, my husband, said, you should really just make a collection of your essays into a book. And I said, ugh, moms don't have time to read books. And then I was like, oh, that's what I should call my book.
Yes.
So I was like, that's really funny. So I wrote a whole book proposal, and an agent actually contacted me that I found. She ended up being a fellow mom at my son's school. And she's like, well, I don't know that publishers are going to find that title to be so funny. Okay. But I want to work with you on a book anyway. So I wrote another book with her. And then another friend of mine who I had coffee with said, you should really have a podcast. And I was like, well, what's a podcast? And she's like, no. I was like, I'm not going to do that. But then I looked into podcasts. I started listening to some. And I was like, well, this is cool. Maybe I can just read books for busy moms, because I always was talking to moms who didn't have time to read, like myself, but I've always loved to read, and I've always been the person that people are like, I'm going on vacation, tell me what books to bring. And even if I think I must read really quickly is what I'm realizing. But anyway.
I saw that stack in there, and I know how busy you are, so I don't know how you're getting through them.
No, I read those.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I guess I don't know. I read quickly, I read often. I don't know how I'm getting through the rest of them. But it turned out that reading, before I even started, I mentioned this idea to someone who said, by the way, that's not legal. You have to get permission from all the authors before you start reading online. So I said, all right, well, maybe I'll just try to talk to some authors. Maybe they can read it. I didn't really know that many authors. I knew a couple. Okay. So I said, well, I'll just try it. Let me just try it. I'll see what happens and see where it goes.
It's totally brilliant.
So I started, and then I realized, like, oh my gosh, I love this. Like, it was so fun. It was from the first my first guest was my friend Lee Carpenter, who I went to business school with, and who's
that was the first one I listened to.
A friend of mine, and I just loved it. It's like, there's so few things where I'm focused, like today I am with you right now, this is great, but I feel like there's so many things going on all the time, and when I do a podcast interview, it all just like stops, and I can focus and get to know somebody, and I love that, especially when I love the book, and I usually only have books on the podcast that I enjoy, because it's, why else am I doing this? Right. Like, I'm doing this for fun. Like, now it's become a business, but I don't want to recommend books I don't like. Although sometimes, not often, but sometimes I'm just dying to get to know the author, and I don't even care about the book so much, or I find what they're doing really interesting or something. But yeah, so now then I started the podcast, I started a second podcast, I realized there's all these potential line extensions from the podcast. I have so many more ideas that I don't have time to implement now. Just like literally, I'm like, I need like, I don't know.
Yeah, body doubles.
I don't know how, so anyway, that was the long answer to entrepreneurial activities, but I really like being in charge of my own time. This is particularly good with the kids because they're involved in every aspect. Like today I'm going to Bookhampton for this event, and like my daughter's gonna come with me, and she'll help me sell like t-shirts, and like every event they're in it. They help me interview guests, I read books with them, they recommend people to me, which is in part why I started a second podcast called Kids Do Have Time to Read Books. So I could do the books they love and the books my little kids love. And that's sort of where I am. So
we need what you're giving us. Well, that leads me into one of my other questions, which is bibliotherapy. Which
yes.
I feel very much that books, create a way to not only escape, but go through an experience that someone has been through that you can learn from, that you can identify with, and it really does make you feel like you're not alone, and it makes you feel like, okay, that person maybe did that differently than I would have, or maybe I kind of want to do that like that. And it's just a lot of really helpful, other than just enjoying the story, aspects to it. And also for children, the more they read, the more empathetic they become, having just not being in their own world all the time, but jumping into someone else's world. And do you feel like that is a thing? Have you heard
totally.
That word before? And
I did not. I think I've heard it once or twice, but never explained as well, and I now want to use that word all the time.
It's really.
But I completely agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I always say, like, everybody recommends, like, how should moms relax, right? How, take care of you, self-care. And I'm like, I don't have time for self-care. Like, it's not happening. And they're like, well, go relax, go take a bath. I'm not going to take a bath, but I could open a book and read for a few minutes, and immediately I'm somewhere else. Much more so than if I turn on the TV, which takes me like 10 minutes to even find something, and then you can't agree, and then, like, do I like it enough? And I don't know, my mind is still going, is this a good use of time? And that's just not how I relax. But a book, like, that's how I relax. And yeah, to your point, the empathy, for sure. I mean, I feel like as I've gotten busier and busier, as we all have, there's less time to sit and one-on-one, like, sort of bond with a friend. At least for me, like, coffees and things like that, I've cut out a lot in favor of trying to get everything else done, and I miss that. It's so important, and it's become what I view as like a luxury almost, like a massage. Like, ooh, coffee with a girlfriend. Ooh, like a walk on the beach. That would be amazing. Maybe once a summer I'll allow myself to do something that fun. But if I reading what they're going through is the same as sort of like sitting and listening to somebody talk, and even though I'm not talking back.
Yeah, that's true.
So.
That's true. You're thinking back.
I'm thinking back.
In the book Alice in Wonderland, the fantastic character of the Cheshire Cat says, "We're all mad here," which is wonderful because it's true. We all have something that's just a little weird or crazy about us. So would you mind sharing something that's what makes Zibby a little crazy?
Oh, gosh. I always change plans. I change plans all the time. I think it drives everybody crazy around me. The impetus for the plan changing is that I always am thinking of some way to do it better. So I feel like it comes from a good place. But I also get very anxious about not having plans in place. So I book things really early. Like, I'll have flights 9 months out. This is what we're doing. And then it gets closer, and I'm like, but what if, so Kyle's always making fun of me. He's like, that's what you say more than anything. I'll say, okay, what if instead of doing this, we meet the kids here, and then we go here? And anyway, so I'm really unreliable. Like, my babysitter is always like, all right, what? I'm like, wait, what if tonight, and they're like, all right, let's hear it.
Okay, good. So, well, at least they're on board.
That's probably the thing
That's awesome. That's making life better every day.
I mean, kind of, but kind of not. It's kind of making everything worse.
No, I think it's fantastic.
I believe that the motivation is good, but I think the end result is often a lot of logistical nightmares.
When you get there, is it really good?
Usually.
Yeah.
Usually it's pretty good. But I definitely have a lot of, like, canceled flights.
And that's a lot, because that's a big crew. What is the best compliment you've ever received?
I'm trying to remember exactly what she said. The other night, at the dinner that you were at, a friend came who I don't know super well, but I've known for a very long time, and she said, "You just bring together warmth. You bring out the warmth in everybody." I thought that was so nice.
I feel warm around you.
Thanks. I don't know. Trying to think if that's the best compliment. I don't know.
Well, if you come up with another one while we're
chatting
about
There's
something else.
So many compliments. How can I pick? That was the most recent nice compliment. I'll go with that.
All right, you are an avid tennis player.
Yes, I love tennis.
Oh my gosh, maybe as passionate as I am, maybe more. What is it that you love about the game? Besides the fact that you met your husband playing tennis, which we can go into later.
Yes.
That's amazing.
What do I love about it? I love that every shot you get to do it again, and you get to figure out what you did wrong and then try it right away. And golf, it's like, my issue with golf is like, you have a bad hole, it can ruin the whole thing. Like, tennis, whatever, you're just like, you change it up right away. You never know what's going to happen. I don't know. I don't know. I love it. It's just like, where to hit the ball, the sensation of hitting the ball, playing with someone else. I don't know. It's like a conversation you're having with somebody.
It's true. It's true.
I don't know.
Do you feel you have a competitive edge when you're playing, or you just kind of more play for fun?
I usually play for fun.
Yeah.
I usually just like to hit. There's this thing that everybody in LA does now called live ball. It's basically like King of the Court for an hour and a half, but they change up all the directions. It's really complicated, and I've had to yell out a few times, "I'm a smart person, I promise," because I cannot keep all the directions straight, because you have to hit it across, and then you run different. By the time I figure it out, an hour and a half is over. And it's fast-paced, but it's also really important where you hit the ball, and you're constantly with new partners, and it's all about strategy, but consistency too, so it's really fun.
Okay, I'll have to try it.
Yeah, you have to try it.
Okay, what was it like to grow up in Manhattan?
I feel like the Upper East Side of Manhattan is just a tiny little village where I still live. I think I'm the kind of person, if I had grown up in a small town in the middle of the United States somewhere, I would still be there. I want to be where I grew up, around the same people I grew up with. It just happens that I grew up in New York City. But I thought it was great. I mean, I don't know. It just, I don't know. I really love the people I grew up with. Many of them are still in our neighborhood now at my kids' schools. I love my friends. Obviously, it's a unique experience now that I'm a grown-up and I see all the other ways I could have been raised. But, I'm choosing to raise my kids there too.
That was my next question. How do you navigate that for your own children any differently due to your kind of experiences, if they were positive or negative? And do you feel like they're Upper East Side? Do you feel like there's a price to the privilege at all? I mean, how are you kind of handling that?
I don't know if I'm specifically handling that. How I'm handling New York City, I mean, this is going to sound ridiculous, but one of the most important parts of growing up in New York is being able to leave New York. Mm-hmm. So getting them out and seeing more parts of the world, getting them out for a break, getting them into nature out here, spending the summers out of New York. I think each of my kids is really different. One of my kids in particular really just does not like New York and is very vocal about that. I'm like, it's not for everybody, And even I really like to go to, Kyle and I spend a ton of time in LA, which I love too, to get, it's too intense for me when I get it in too big a bucket. And I think the kids too. Mm-hmm. I think they need to get out. But it's great. While we're there, make the best of it. We're here now. Go to the theater, do fun things every so often, take advantage of these amazing classes and museums and resources and whatever, and then we're out of there.
It's true. So. It's true. It's the nice balance, for sure. What scares you?
Something happening to my kids. That's, yeah.
Okay, well, what is one of your tiny pleasures in life, other than reading?
Other than reading and seeing friends. Mm-hmm. And playing tennis, which are you've talked about all the things. I like having coffee is probably my biggest pleasure.
Treat for yourself.
I really love to bake. That's one of my favorite things if I have the time. Other pleasures. I really love home design, honestly. I like decorating.
Home's beautiful.
Oh, I didn't decorate. I didn't decorate this room, but I love it. I love home design magazines and picking things out and redoing things, and I really love photography. It's another huge passion of mine. Taking pictures. I've done photography my whole life, but we tend to buy some photos now and go to photo exhibits, and I follow a bunch of photographers on Instagram.
But tell me how it works if somebody wanted to work with you.
So the book subscription, so I'm offering a few different things. One is a book subscription service, and you can pick your genre: fiction, memoir, parenting, children's books, and middle grade fiction. And 4 times a year, I'll send you a book that I think is amazing, and end of story. I also just started with my newsletter sign up, offering personalized book recommendations. And actually, it's taking a lot of my time, but it's so interesting and fun to do. So people answer the few questions that I put on my website.
Okay.
And
What are those questions?
So those questions are, what have you read recently? What are some of your favorites? What are you in the mood for? And what else should I know? And I've been getting really interesting responses. And I can usually tell, like, if they list like 6 books, I know I can figure out what they should read.
That's awesome.
Or what they're in the mood for, so that's been fun. So I also am offering this like VIP reader experience where I can do a Skype call with somebody, talk all about books, invite them to special VIP events. They can come sit in and watch me do a podcast with an author of their choice. Lots of swag, things like that. And I'm doing a Start Your Own Podcast kit. So you can buy a microphone and my 22-step guide to starting your own podcast with Mousepad. And I offer hourly consulting on helping start up podcasts as well.
Cool.
But those are just a few of the offerings.
Well, congratulations. I need them all. I need them all. And thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.